She's alright, she's alright. That girl's alright with me. Super freak, yeah. Oh, didn't see you guys there. Dang, the traffic is terrible right there. Anyway, what's up, guys? Now that I've officially got a track day under my belt, I wanted to talk about the comparison between... Oh, my back. I'll talk about the comparison between wheelies and track riding. Every time somebody knows how to wheelie, some track rider will be like, oh, my 12-year-old nephew can freaking wheelie, so you suck, and hit the track, loser. On the flip end, somebody good at the track could be out there dragging knee, and some stunner will go, oh yeah, but can you hit 12 o'clock? Because I can go out there, I can just touch my knee down. All you gotta do is just lean off a little bit and, you know, lean the bike and tap it. It's not that hard. So which one's harder, huh? Is track riding harder? Is wheelies harder? In my opinion, yeah, definitely both their own skill set. And the only thing that's really comparable between the two is the mental barrier from it being scary, and I guess your ability to like ride in general, like how much control of a bike do you have to begin with, and then your learning capability. So like, how willing are you to learn? How receptive are you to advice? You know, can you actually like really take advice and apply it, quickly put it into motion, and actually start improving? So I feel like the part where it gets different is like, for me, the track was really scary my first lap out there, but then after like one day, I started pushing it a lot more. So there's like a night and day difference between my first lap on the track and like my 20th lap, which you can go out for an entire day with wheelies and hardly make any progress at all. So like, wheelies are kind of complicated. Like, if you really break it down to like its most basic form, when you are good at a wheelie, you kind of just rev up the clutch and you just hold your throttle hand still, and you can just hold, you know, one spot with your wrist. So if you're good at just locking your wrists in place, then technically a wheelie is pretty easy, because then if you get too far back, you just tap the foot brake a little bit. And like, as far as like what's physically harder, obviously the track is physically harder. It's like way more physically taxing on your body than a wheelie is, unless you're doing some like crazy stuff like stunting, like foot drag into spreader type stuff, or like podium, things that actually require you to start stretching and develop more flexibility. If you know, weren't flexible enough, that's a little more comparable. So like stunting to track riding, but like a basic wheelie to track riding, not quite as comparable. But the mental barriers and like the time it takes to get past those definitely are. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I think overall, I don't know, because there's track riders out there that have had several like wheelie sessions. Like Yami Noob's been trying to you know, learn to wheelie his Grom. I think he's had at least like 3 lot sessions, and he's still not very good at it. But I had one, you know, weekend of the track, and I got pretty good, I would say. I mean, I'm not even comparable to like a MotoGP rider though. So that's where I feel like the differences come in a little more. Is like, instead of just comparing regular, like just going to a track and trying to drag knee or something to doing a wheelie, I think what's more comparable is like trying to push for like a world record time limit or something. Like the track time, the best time on that track was like 1:50 or something, and I'm probably getting around 2:20. So that's, if I was gonna say what's harder, I would say the ability to push myself to getting to that like 150 mark. That's probably harder than doing a wheelie, or, you know, I don't know, or like maybe like compared to a basic wheelie. But then you could also compare like, okay, well, what's harder, pushing for your very first scrape or pushing to hit like a 2-minute time mark on the track? But then again, you could go out there on 1000 and like save a bunch of time, and every time there's a straight, and then kind of be knocking it down. So it's like, I don't know, I guess at the end of the day, like now that I've done both, they're not really quite as comparable. I think all it comes down to is like your ability as a person, your capability to learn and like take advice, and your willingness to like set aside what, you know, the ego of like whatever you thought you were going to be able to do, and just like humble yourself and ask people, hey, what am I doing wrong? What can I improve on? Because if I went out to the track and I tried to just teach myself how to do everything, like I'm basically reinventing the wheel, and it's going to take me a long time to do stuff. But if you go out there and you have a mentor and you're willing to like acknowledge that you're not as good as you thought you were, and somebody can tell you about, you know, your body positioning, like upper body, lower body, like when you should be braking, what lines you should take, explaining the cones and stuff that I had no idea about when I first went to the track. Like, your ability to take all that in is kind of everything when it comes to like making things easier and harder, you know? So yeah, I don't know. But I will say, I just feel like the amount of progress I was able to make in one day at the track versus my first day of doing wheelies by far takes way more like consistency. So I don't know, I guess at the end of the day, it's not really the skills that you're comparing so much as like, it's more of the mental barrier. Which mental barrier is harder to break through? So in that case, I would say the mental barrier of wheelies is way harder to break through than like the mental barrier of track riding and like being able to take curbs faster. Because if you just repetitively go in, as long as you come in with like the proper entry speed, you can slowly start realizing, okay, you know, now that I'm getting used to it, I can come in a little faster, brake a little later, get my lean on, start gassing a little quicker. And like watching videos of yourself do that, you can get a lot better a lot faster. And that mental barrier is not nearly as scary as the wheelie, because keeping two wheels on the ground, like you can lean and like touch your knee, and like, you know, now you have like a marker kind of where you're at. You really can understand like where you're actually at on the bike. And even if you're not understanding where you're at on the bike, all you have to really be looking out for is like the feeling of your tire slipping or something. I don't know. Basically, it's like, it's significantly different compared to wheelies, where, you know, until you've like truly experienced the whole range from like two wheels to scraping, it's hard for you to really know where you're at, you know? And without having videos and without like going and looking at it and going again and looking at it and going back and forth a lot, it's hard to like have that reference point. So I don't know, yeah. Wheelies, the mental barrier of wheelies is probably way harder to break through. But once you've actually got to the point where you can like dip and scrape and whatever, and you have full control over the wheelie, comparing that to track riding, okay, now it's getting to where now track riding is kind of harder, because physically it wears you out more. Like if I didn't, like, I don't work out a ton, but I go to the gym a little bit. So like if I didn't go to the gym, the soreness of my legs would be crazy. Probably the forearm pump, definitely my hand, like my hand kept going numb being out there. So you got to learn to like loosen your grip up and stop like grabbing so hard. But like physically leaning yourself way off the bike is taking more from your body than doing a wheelie. Like if you have to really hold on, your arms start burning in a wheelie. But if you kind of can sit back in your seat and chill, you can go for a long time, and it's not physically requiring at all, pretty much. I think going and just learning a track and like getting used to it and being able to ride throughout the day without crashing, like that's not that hard, because you can always just change what you're doing to like what you're actually comfortable with, versus a wheelie. A wheelie is what it is, and if you want to do it the way it's meant to be done, you're forced to learn, you know, to do it the way it has to be, if that makes sense. Like a wheelie is just gonna be a wheelie. The height, you don't get to change what height the wheelie's gonna be at, you know, to be considered a wheelie. Like it just is what it is. So if you want to do a wheelie, you have to meet like the requirements of the wheelie, versus track riding. Technically, the speed that you go through the track can meet the requirements of how fast you're comfortable with going. So you can work your way up to it in a different way. That like the only comparable way for like a wheelie would be like having wheelie control maybe that limits how far you can go, so you can know you don't loop, or like doing the wheelie machine like I did with DFW Ghost Rider, that like has straps to limit the height so you know you won't loop. Like, I guess that's kind of comparable. But yeah, so then it comes down to, like, to actually get better at the track, it relies on your ability to push yourself and, you know, going faster and faster, and like getting to the point where you're at a MotoGP level. Like, that's hard. I truly believe that, I mean, learning to do a wheelie is definitely way easier than like ever getting to a point where you could be a MotoGP rider. Like, those guys are nuts. So yeah, I don't know, that's kind of my little take on it. Let me know if that makes sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.